Had a moment where you genuinely wondered if any of this is worth it. Not out loud, because you'd never say it out loud, but in that quiet space between going to sleep and actually falling asleep, the thought shows up and it asks you directly. What if this never works out? What? What if I'm putting in all this effort and sacrificing all this time and it just doesn't go anywhere? What if I'm not the kind of person things actually work out for? And here's the thing. I'm not going to tell you that thought is wrong for showing up, because it shows up for everyone, including the people you look up to, including the people whose lives look perfect from the outside, including every single person who ever built something real from nothing. But tonight, I want to flip that question completely on its head. Because instead of asking, what if it falls apart, I want you to seriously ask yourself, what if it actually works out? What if everything you're grinding through right now, all the doubt, all the uncertainty, all the slow, invisible progress that nobody around you even notices yet, what if all of that is just the early chapters of something you haven't fully seen yet? Here's something that took me a long time to understand about the way the human mind actually works. Your brain is genuinely not designed to root for you in the way you think it is. It's not designed to keep you happy or successful or fulfilled. It's designed to keep you alive, and those are two completely different jobs. So when you sit down and try to imagine your future, your brain automatically and almost instantly starts scanning for every possible threat, every way it could go wrong, every reason the plan might fail. Because that's what kept your ancestors breathing long enough to have children. The problem is that in the world we live in today, there are no lions, there are no rival tribes, there are no real physical threats most of the time, but your brain still runs that same ancient software every single day without asking your permission. This is why you can lie awake at night, and your mind will build an incredibly detailed, almost cinematic picture of failure, rejection, and embarrassment. But the moment you try to imagine things actually going well, it feels almost naive, almost arrogant, like you're setting yourself up to be hurt. That feeling is not wisdom, and it's not realism. That feeling is just your brain doing its old job in a world where that job no longer serves you the way it used to. And the first step to changing your life is recognizing that the voice in your head that always expects the worst is not telling you the truth, it's just telling you what it was built to tell you. Now, I want to talk about where a lot of you actually are right now, because I think this is the part that matters most, and it's the part that almost nobody talks about, honestly. You're doing the work. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not every single day without fail, but you're trying, you're showing up more than you used to. You're making decisions that the old version of you wouldn't have made. And yet, when you look around at your actual life, the results aren't there yet. The bank account doesn't reflect it yet. The body doesn't show it yet. The relationships haven't changed yet. And that gap between the effort you're putting in and the results you're not seeing yet is one of the most dangerous places a person can be, because it's exactly where most people decide to quit. Not because they can't do it, but because they can't see it yet. And the human brain is absolutely terrible at trusting a process it can't see working in real time. But here is what I need you to understand about that invisible phase you're in right now. The results not showing up yet doesn't mean the work isn't doing anything. It means the work is doing something underneath the surface that hasn't broken through yet. And every single day that you keep going anyway, every single day that you choose effort over comfort when it would be so much easier to just stop, you are compressing that invisible progress tighter and tighter until eventually it has nowhere to go but up. The people who look like overnight successes from the outside almost always spent years in that exact invisible phase where nothing seemed to be working, and most of the people around them had already written them off. The only difference between them and the people who gave up is that they stayed long enough to find out what was on the other side. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they're working towards something is that they only measure the external results, the numbers, the achievements, the visible proof that it's working, and they completely ignore the most important thing that's actually happening. They're ignoring who they're becoming in the process. Because here's the truth about building a real life that most motivational content glosses over. completely. The goal is not really the goal. The goal is just the direction. What actually matters, what actually stays with you long after you hit the target or miss it or realize the target was slightly different than you imagined, is the kind of person you built yourself into while you were chasing it. Every morning you get out of bed when you don't feel like it. You become slightly more disciplined than you were yesterday. Every time you have a hard conversation instead of avoiding it, you become slightly more courageous than you were before. Every time you sit with discomfort instead of running from it, your capacity for difficulty grows, and that capacity is what life actually runs on. It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even intelligence. It's the ability to keep functioning under pressure and uncertainty. And you are building that ability right now, today, in this exact season of your life that feels the hardest. So even on the days where the external results aren't showing up, even on the days where it feels like nothing is moving, ask yourself honestly, am I becoming the kind of person whose life works out? Because if the answer is yes, then everything else is just a matter of time. I want you to do something, and I want you to actually do it instead of just hearing it and moving on. Picture the version of you that didn't quit. Not the perfect version, not the version with a flawless life and zero problems, because that version doesn't exist for anyone, but the version that kept going past the point where it got uncomfortable, past the point where other people stopped believing in them, past the point where even they weren't completely sure it was going to work. That version of you has the life you're working toward right now. Not because everything went perfectly, but because they stayed in it long enough for things to compound, long enough for the right opportunities to meet the right level of preparation, long enough to figure out what they were actually made of. And here is the only thing separating you from that version of yourself. It is not talent. It is not connections. It is not coming from the right background or having the right circumstances. It is just a series of daily decisions, most of them small, most of them unglamorous, most of them made in moments where nobody is watching and nobody would know the difference either way, that either close the gap between who you are and who you're capable of being, or they keep it exactly where it is. That version of you is not some distant fantasy that may or may not be available to you depending on luck. That version of you is just you, combined with time, combined with the decision to not give up on yourself today. So I want to leave you with this tonight. And I want you to actually carry it with you instead of just feeling it for the next 10 minutes and forgetting it. You are in the middle of your story right now. And the middle of every real story feels exactly like this, uncertain and slow and sometimes completely pointless. Like the ending is never going to come and the effort is never going to add up to anything. But you are not at the end yet. You don't get to see how it finishes from where you're standing right now. What you do get to choose, the only thing you actually control in any of this, is what the next chapter looks like. And I genuinely believe that the person watching this right now is closer to their turning point than they think they are. Not because life is fair and hard work always gets rewarded exactly when you want it to, but because the alternative, deciding it's not going to work out and living your life accordingly, is the one choice that guarantees you never find out what was possible. So ask yourself that question one more time, seriously this time, with everything you've been carrying lately sitting right there in the room with you. What if it actually works out? What if the hard nights were worth it? What if the slow progress was still progress? What if the version of you that kept going is closer than you ever let yourself believe? Live like that version is possible, because it is. And I will see you in the next one.